Hello and welcome to another episode of The Wave, the Wonderful Alberni Valley Experience. I'm your host, Don Tecson, coming to you live from the unceded territories of the Hoopachesit and Teshop people. And with us, of course, is my dear co-host, Carol Ann. How are you today, darling?
I'm great, Don. How are you today?
It could be better, but I'm still happy. Still smiling, because it's the best thing I wear, my smile.
And your new puppy is probably what's making you so excited.
Okay, now, well, Carol Ann and I went on a little adventure last week. And we're going to talk about that. But before that, I'd like her to say hi to the audience and introduce our guests.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wonderful Alberni Valley Experience. And today with us, we have Captain Michael Ramsey from the Salvation Army, and we have Colin Minions from the Salvation Army and the Bread of Life. Michael, I'll get you to tell me a little bit about what your role is.
So I'm the captain at the Salvation Army, so I'm responsible for the Salvation Army operations in the valley here, and as part of that, responsible for the operations at the Bread of Life, and also blessed to be on the board of a number of different community agencies.
Wonderful. And Colin, what is your exact role and title? Because I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, so my role with the Salvation Army is the Director of Food Security, so that primarily oversees the food bank, and then with our operations agreements with the Bread of Life, it's overseeing the the soup kitchen, and now with the expanded service to the drop-in center there as well.
Okay, and what got you involved in this?
So I was actually a member of the Bread of Life board for a few years, and right before the pandemic started, I was the board chair, and I was working with Canadian Mental Health. When the pandemic hit, we kind of immediately saw there was going to be we couldn't see the need, we knew there was going to be a need unique and different than anything we'd seen in the past. So we brought as many agencies together at the same to work in a more unified way to make sure that our services were disrupted as little as possible, and that if there was a new and unique need, that we were able to meet it. So for the first year or 9 months of the pandemic, I was actually still employed by Canadian Mental Health and working with Salvation Army and Bread of Life on delivering mostly the food services, but anything related to the pandemic. And then about 9 months, so January, about a year ago now, a position was offered to me as Director of Food Security and overseeing these, and I jumped at that opportunity because I felt like it was a perfect fit for my experience, with my experience and education, that it would be a perfect fit. So that's where it's gone.
If I recall correctly, some time ago, in the early days of the pandemic, there was a group called the ACRD or something, like the Alberni Community Response.
Alberni, Community
could you
COVID
tell us a little
Response.
bit about that? You were all involved then, because
Yes.
you mentioned something about a group or a coalition of all the agencies and services.
Yes. So we're still around, but and it's certainly changed over time. So when the pandemic hit, a group of agencies got together and exactly that, got together and discussed how we could work together to help out everybody during the pandemic. And the first meeting I missed because we were still trying to figure out how to get back to Canada, because we were trapped in Europe at the time. And
we're getting that story a little bit later.
Yeah. So, but then the number of agencies got together. So Salvation Army, Bread of Life, Canadian Mental Health. I think the Shelter Society was involved in the early days.
Literacy Alberni,
because I interviewed Graham about that.
and then CUAS Crisis Line was another one that Island Health Outreach. They were kind of auxiliary to it, and they were starting to provide their own outreach services, and then we started to kind of realize that we were hitting a lot of the same spots, doing similar things. So we ended up more of a team where we were driving around with our food, and CUAS had outreach supplies. Island Health was coming around to do checks on people and harm reduction supplies, and it became a little bit of a convoy. And actually, a couple SPCA heard what we were doing, and then they started coming around with dog food and cat food for people, and it became quite a big
That's
operation.
what I love about Pearl Alberni, community action, like together, instead of competing, we collaborate and we cooperate, and that's what I love about Port Alberni.
So now that you have the food truck, though, is that the one main core that goes around? Or are there other
Sure, it's changed. it's changed quite a bit through COVID and everything like that. So the food truck is one of the key ones, but QS still has their van that goes around as well, right?
And what's in their van? Because we know you have food. So what do they
So
offer?
that's like health and sanitation, sanitary supplies, COVID-related supplies, masks, and hand sanitizer and things like that. And then they go around 7 days a week still.
Okay.
The food truck currently is going out 4 nights a week, with a 5th night coming as soon as this week, I believe.
Right.
Okay.
And then it goes out on Saturday as well. And even the food truck we do in partnership with numerous other societies. We work with Calsa Aid and Rotary.
And do they cook the food and bring the food, or do you cook the food and bring the food, or is it different for everybody?
Yes, the groups do it differently. So Jericho Road Church on Saturdays, they'll make their own food. Calsa Aid usually and Rotary usually hand out the food that's made at the Bread of Life Soup Kitchen.
Okay.
And we've got Elam Tabernacle coming on for Monday nights, and they'll be cooking their full meals and everything else like that they'll be distributing.
Yeah.
So again, it's a real blessing to be able to have so many different community agencies and groups helping out.
That's wonderful. Yeah, we got Carol Ann and I got to ride on the food truck. Are we ready with the clip, Austin? That was so much fun. What did you say, Carol Ann?
I liked it. I had fun. I'm going to do it again. I enjoyed it.
Okay.
So I'm curious to know, though, like, that's a lot of food to put out in an evening, because you must feed how many people?
More than 100 most evenings.
So where does this food come from? Is the majority of it donated from grocery stores, or do you purchase it, or like how do we get all these meals?
Sure. So we have some that we've purchased, some that's come through COVID funding, some that's donated through recycled foods, some that's donated straight from donors, and quite a variety of different places.
What is recycled foods? Sorry, I gotta ask.
It's the food that is no longer sellable at the grocery
Oh,
stores.
okay, but there's nothing wrong with
But
it. No.
No.
they we'll see the yogurts will get pulled off the shelves 3 days before.
Yes.
And we'll get it. So it'll have 3 days before its
Okay.
best before date, and so it's
It
still
just sounded
perfectly
funny.
good
Had to
for us.
ask.
Yeah.
And we
Okay.
follow there's specific guidelines for us to follow with Food Banks Canada about what food's appropriate to serve and for how
Okay.
long, and we stick to that, but the food is certainly all edible and just for depending on the product, different reasons they're
I just
pulling it off
haven't
their
heard the word
shelves.
recycled food before,
Yeah.
so I
So,
had
yeah.
to ask.
Yeah.
It just seemed a little
And,
different.
and it's food that was on the shelf the day before.
Yeah.
It's not food that's sat
No.
around for weeks at a
And
time.
It does say
Grocery-
best before, so if it's not best anymore, it's better and then good.
Yeah, that's what my mom always said. Smell the milk; it'll be fine.
Well, an interesting part of the food truck story, because the food truck hasn't been in Port Alberni that long. It's only when you were here. Right? So I'd like to tell the story about that a little bit. There's an interesting story I happen to know because of my interview with you before.
Right.
So how did that food truck end up here in Port Alberni?
So the food truck is still the property of Gibson's, right? So we had to go all the way over to Gibson's and pick up the food truck, and we've been using it every day since. And so we were just really blessed that we were able to use Gibson's food truck. And I guess part of the funny story is that it was my main transportation for a little while. Right? Because when we were the pandemic hit, of course, as I said, we were in Europe, but we flew out of the United States to get there. So my car wound up stuck in the United States for more than, I'd say, 6 months or so.
Wow.
So yes, I was driving a bunch of other vehicles around, not the least of which was the big community response vehicle there. So, a great chance to raise awareness in the community, too, about how all our agencies were coming together and feeding people. So.
And I think the reason why we got it is important, too, is as when the pandemic hit and we were forced to close the doors of all of our buildings. We just didn't know what was going to happen. We couldn't have large groups of people congregating. So then we were trying different ways. We were cooking it and then preparing it, handing it out the door. But I was still creating lineups of people and still too many people around. And we were looking for a new and creative way to get food to people without having them to travel long distances or get them as close to home as possible. And so the food truck came at a time when that was able to meet that need.
Is the Salvation Army food truck, are they all over, or is this kind of a rare thing? Is it just big cities? Who has these trucks?
So there's a few of the trucks around, and they're often posted for places where there'll be need urban centers for with large homeless populations, obviously, but also in areas where there will be frequent flooding or fires, because these vehicles are often used for emergency disasters. And so if there's a flood, we'll often get a call out, or a fire, we'll get a call out to help feed the first responders as well as displaced people.
So do we have this food truck till the end of time, or is this got to go somewhere else next after we're done with it?
Maybe Michael will bring it as his other vehicle.
Yeah, that's right.
Be a new
That's
video.
right. Yeah, drive it.
Just as interesting of the food truck ending up here is another interesting story of how Michael ended up here.
Oh yes.
Because you weren't originally assigned here, right?
No.
You're here for about 2-3 years now.
Yeah, I think I've finished 3 years now, so it's great. I hope I'm here for a whole long time.
Yeah, I'm interested about that story, how you.
Sure.
ended
Heather
up
says
here
it's been
first.
4 years.
4 years. Yeah.
4 years. Okay.
Yeah.
She should know.
She knows. Yes.
So before coming to Port Alberni, where were you then?
So before Port Alberni, I was posted in inner city Toronto. We worked in the Regent Park area of Toronto.
Oh wow.
Which was it was really quite something, and I still laugh when I hear, what is it, Crime Stoppers, Crime on the Week, when I'm driving to work these days, right? Crime of the Week in Port Alberni, shoplifting, so it's like, it's a little bit different, right?
Somebody stole a porch furniture.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because at one point when we were in Toronto, we had, there was a spree killer going on and a serial killer, and they were affecting, our congregations and the people that we worked with, and it was, and then of course Regent Park, it was North America's first ghetto. And so then in this environment with this violence at the same time as the revitalization, I mean, a lot of what we were doing was we were running programs for the youth in the area, as well as we ran the soup kitchen and the food bank in that area, right in downtown Regent Park. So, yeah, it was really quite something. And of course, we worked very closely with all of the agencies. They had a first responders meeting that we would have regularly at the Salvation Army. We would talk with the RCMP, the police, and all the other service areas down in that area, where we would address the immediate crises that were coming up with that surrounded that area. So yeah, it was quite something. And the Salvation Army, they move us around quite a bit. So just before that, I was in rural Saskatchewan, because as soon as you get so that you know one environment, they put you in an entirely different environment, right? So when I was in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, before then, we actually ran the justice programs for all of Southwest Saskatchewan. So we ran alternative measures programs, and so we ran healing circles, and we did mediations between victims and offenders. And we really, one of the things we did there was a transition through incarceration program. And so we would walk with victim and offender from the time of a charge, and we try and bring healing and resolution. And then if the person went away to incarceration in Prince Albert or Regina, we would keep in touch with them and then help them find a job and a place to live when they got back. And in my years there, we only had one repeat offender, so our success rate was just amazing, right? And so before that, I was in northern Saskatchewan, and we did a...
You've been around.
I know. And
Good story.
So how often do they ask you to, like, do you have a time frame that where they reevaluate?
So they just, every year, every Salvation Army officer gets a phone call and says, either you're staying or you are going to, right?
And you don't have a choice, I guess.
No, not really. I mean, in the old days, you weren't even consulted, but these days they consult us every year, and they ask us, what we would like to do as well. I mean, they don't always listen to what we'd like to do, but at least they ask. So, but and one of the good things is you get to see so many other parts of the world. Like, I mean, I was posted in Maple Creek, Saskatchewan, and Nipawin, Saskatchewan, two places I'd never heard of before I was posted there, right? And and then you get to do the wide variety of work, right? Like I was talking about within the justice field, and then in inner city Toronto, and I was in Vancouver's downtown east side for a while. I was a chaplain at Stony Mountain Penitentiary.
Oh wow!
And that was fun. That was one of my many hats is as an ordained minister, right? And so the day after I was ordained, my first sermon as an ordained minister was in Stony Mountain Penitentiary. Because
tough crowd.
Oh yeah.
Are you ordained?
Yes.
Now, so you can perform marriages?
Oh
and
yes.
stuff like that?
Oh yeah, I almost called upon him because our pastor was busy.
Well, good to know, because somebody was
became available.
asking me for a minister, but maybe we were able to find somebody at the United Church. But I'm curious now. So you've been posted all over different places, and you got posted. What was your initial reaction when you were posted here in Port Alberni?
Oh, I tell you, we couldn't be happier.
Really?
Oh yes. So originally,
Haven't you heard about Port Alberni before, or?
My wife grew up in Port Alberni.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Yes, yeah. They actually grew up out at Sprout Lake, and well, her father was the MLA here for a generation.
Oh,
wow.
So, yeah.
Well, what is your wife's maiden name then?
Skelly.
No, I don't know that.
So Bob Skelly, he was former leader of the NDP.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
I get
So
it
that's my father-in-law.
now. Okay.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so some connections to the community. So that's some of the blessings of coming, I mean, to this wonderful community already, is even though I'd never lived here, there was already a connection, right? So it was absolutely wonderful. And this is, I mean, it's just a wonderful Alberni Valley experience.
Exactly.
And our families, both my family and my wife's family, are down in Victoria. So, I mean, a lot closer than when we were in inner city Toronto, right? This is the closest.
And a lot lesser sirens wanging all over the place.
Yeah, a little bit different. Yeah.
And the reality is we want him to stay, and he wants
So do
to
you
stay,
get a choice to stay longer?
Well, we tell them that we want to stay longer, and so unless they look at something and say, "No, we absolutely need you here," right? But
And I think with COVID, it's probably better to keep the same crew.
Yes, I think so. And I mean, and we have been absolutely blessed in this community with the number of partner agencies we've been talking about here, and the way we've been able to work together with so many different agencies, and this community is really pulled together. And I think the Salvation Army sees that our team is a big part of the greater team in this community, and I think they'd want to leave it intact as long as they can, right?
And at the same time, it's making sure that if at any point you are transferred away somewhere else, that we've established it, it's the infrastructure's there, that everything's in place, that we can hopefully maintain it.
What services
operations.
do you guys offer at the actual Salvation Army on Argyle and
Forest?
Sure.
I had to think about
in that particular building, right?
So what is there?
So in that particular building, we've got the food bank there, and there you've got food that you can come and get on a daily basis. But we're also moving back to an appointment basis that we had before COVID, and that is really an important chance where we can sit down and talk with some of our clients, and really they have an opportunity to address what led to them needing food, right? Because nobody just wakes up one morning and doesn't need food. Something has happened in their life, right? So then we've gone back to just recently, we've been able to go back to that appointment-based system where we've been able to chat with people and then address the root needs of what's causing them to need food. And so that's a big part of Colin's area, is overseeing the food bank and what happens there. We've also got the thrift store, and Caroline, I know you like our thrift store. And
I'm
so
a
do
thrift
I.
store junkie.
It's senior day on Tuesday, am I right?
Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had to bring my mother to get a senior discount.
Yes.
I'm not just senior just yet.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yes,
I'm
you
getting
are.
there. No.
John gets the discount.
No. Well,
Just saying.
what does the senior age start at in Salvation Army?
Apparently at John's
I
age.
think
so-
it's 55. Well, John's 60.
Oh, 55.
But I
I
think it's
qualified it.
55.
Well, there you
Shoppers
go.
is 65.
Oh.
55.
Well, there you go. We'll
Shoppers
give it a
is
shot.
55, so I was asking for my discount in Shoppers.
Yeah.
And the guy said, we start at 55, sir. I'm 58. I have to get my license.
Oh, really?
I was flattered.
Yeah.
I said, you only got it $5. The discount was $5.
I get it where you can. I tag John along with me to a lot of places to
yeah?
get my discount.
You save $5 and you got an ego boost. Well,
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
All at
right.
once. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious now, Colin, were you involved with the Salvation Army prior to Michael's involvement?
I had actually partnered with them a couple times when I was in a management position with Canada Post, and we had partnered on a couple food drives that were very successful. So while it wasn't Michael, I had worked with some of the staff there in the past and previous captain.
I see. I'm just curious now, your predecessor before, I mean, there was a captain here before.
Yes. Yeah. There have been a few here before. So Michelle was a lieutenant before that, and then I think majors even before that, and captains before that. Yeah. So they've had a whole bunch of people with different experience. So
I'm confused now. I'm not really versed with the ranking. So is major?
So it's basically time served. So your first 2 years you're a lieutenant, then you're a captain for 15 years, and then you're a major from then on out.
Oh, so a major is higher than a captain.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
I'm not really.
by this summer I'll be a major because I'll have served
Yay.
15 years
Because
as a
you're
captain.
majorly awesome.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because I'm in a majorly awesome community, right? Yes.
You're in the wonderful Alberni Valley.
Yes.
Okay, so going back to the services now. So it's Bread of Life and what other organizations? Salvation Army, and you mentioned who was it?
KUS is a major partner.
So, but what does the Bread of Life building that is the warming center? I think people want to know exactly what that is. What it does, what is in there.
Right. So I can give a brief history of how it came about. In November of I got to get my years right. November of 2020. So we were into the pandemic, but we were seeing that there was a need for somewhere to people to warm up, and we had talked for years about how we could utilize that building more, but Bread of Life has operated on no funding, strictly on donations and fundraising, so it was hard to expand the services. But we were able to get a grant with the United Way to open up just a temporary warming center. So we actually started out for 4 hours a day, 3 days a week, and that was the first few weeks. And then we started to look at how this isn't enough. How do we open up more days? And it was actually very early on that KUS crisis line approached us and said that they would like to partner with us on expanding the service, and if they were to provide a staff member to work and to provide to work with our staff member, what would that look like? And then it quickly became 7 days a week, and then it was longer hours, and then it was cold weather, and we started to think, okay, like when it's minus 7 degrees outside,
You can't have
can we open overnight? So we tried that last year, and we did it. We were able to do it. It was about 10 or 12 nights we were open overnight. And then it was looking for some sustainability. How do we stay open year round as a drop-in center, not just a warming center in the winter?
But year round's not overnight, right? Year round is only during
No.
the day.
Right.
Okay.
So we are currently contracted through BC Housing to be
Yeah.
open from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. 7 days a week year round.
Okay.
And it's a sub-program of the Port Alberni Shelter Society. They have their overnight beds where people stay there overnight, and then at 9 a.m. they are,
yeah.
I don't want to say kicked out, that's not the right word, but,
No, but
the building closes at
They
9
gotta clean
a.m.
and do
Released.
things. Yeah.
Yes, they're at 9 a.m. and again, we partner with Kuis. Kuis goes there every morning with their vehicle, their shuttle, and they are able to drive people to the Bread of Life, and then we are open from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day, and then at 4 p.m. again, people can go back there. So we're a sub-program of that, but of course, the community need is significantly more than just
when
those
you're
people.
open at night, overnight right now, because it's cold,
Right.
can do people come in there and sit in there all night long because they're cold, or how does that work? Because you were just saying that you're not a shelter, so just out of curiosity, how does that?
Yeah, so even during the day, we find like some people are just exhausted. A lot of people in the cold weather, before we were open, they would walk around all night because if they stopped, they would get too cold. So they would walk around all night and be tired during the day. So we would often have people that would be falling asleep on a table, or they would
And
kind of
that's
set
okay
up
to come in there and sit
yeah.
down and fall
Oh,
asleep?
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Definitely.
I mean, they need
Yeah.
sleep
Oh, for
to
sure.
function. They need
Yeah.
sleep to survive, and as long as we're able to operate with that going on, then we will have people very regularly that are curling up on the.
And
on
what
the
can
floor.
they come in there for? Like, besides just somewhere to be, like, what do you have in there? Like coffee, food, warm blankets, coats? Do you have anything like that? What is in there?
So all of that, and we've got some computers that people can use, and
Yeah, so there's
Computers. I'm just curious. Computers for what? Email.
well, it is.
We're looking for jobs
It is,
and-
Oh, okay.
but it is often email or Facebook. It's their own. They don't have.
Their
It's their
only way
only
to
communication with their
communicate.
family
Oh,
or
okay.
friends, and they're able to, and it's access to news and
I see.
and other whatever their other interests are.
Is it like their cable TV there, or they can
Yeah.
watch
there
the
is a
news?
TV there, yeah.
Yep. There's a TV on there, and we have all the. If they want to watch Netflix or Disney
Really,
Plus.
Netflix.
Oh, I don't even have
We've
I don't
had-
have Disney Plus.
We've
I have
had
Netflix.
yeah. There's usually a staff member that's signing into their account,
Oh, okay.
but we've had marathons of Marvel movies and
Oh, okay.
things like that.
And a Wave TV. No.
Oh yeah, always every episode of the Wave. Yeah, yeah. So
So can people donate stuff to the warming center, or do you prefer not to be overwhelmed with things? Like, what are you, if you were looking for something, what would it be?
primarily, I would say, especially in the winter, is coats, toques, and gloves would probably actually even be more of a need.
Yeah, and socks. Always
Socks for sure.
Oh,
Okay.
Coats are very helpful, and we will often give them out. But it seems like almost every person that comes through the door could use a toque or
Okay.
a glove, even if that's what they're really needing. And we will accept blankets as well. Yeah, those are the main things. I think for actual wardrobe, we are able to
Send them to the Salvation
we
Army.
we can
Yeah.
send them, and if there's a need and they don't have the means to go shop at the thrift store, we can give them a voucher
Yeah.
and support them in getting the clothes that they need.
And that's one of the blessings about the way the thrift store is set up. So, I mean, it's a double blessing because people are able to donate to help out others in need, like through their used clothing and stuff like that. But also, anytime somebody purchases something from the Salvation Army, right, all the money goes straight back to our community to helping out those in need. And of course, whenever somebody doesn't have articles of clothing or whatnot, we can just set it up, give them a voucher, and provide them with what they need. So yeah, we're really blessed to have such a really good thrift store and good staff manning it.
Well, I don't know how true. I think I read somewhere that you have those bills on Christmas time.
Yes.
And you raised more money this year, or last year, than previous years.
Yeah, last year and this year were definitely the best years for totals in the Alberni Valley here. And again, I just think it really speaks to the wonderful Alberni Valley experience and how the community sees that there's been a real need, particularly among the homeless and the hard to house during COVID, right? And so then everybody stepped up. And so I'm just so blessed to be a part of this community where everybody pulls together and helps. And I think, I think that's why at the Bread of Life, the Salvation Army, QS, and the other agencies, why we are able to help out so many people, because this community really pulls together.
Well, and you can't walk by a kettle now and say, I'm sorry, I don't have cash, because the kettle has tap.
That's right.
We do have
Really? I didn't know that.
we do have
But
that.
I mean, I think, I always $20 in the kettle every time I walk to, every time you go to the grocery store. Like, it adds up, but it's so important. Like, I think it's
But
great.
it's just
You have a
wonderful,
kettle
like,
permanently at the
how
thrift
people
store.
help each
I think
other.
It's great.
And the thrift store and the kettles are primarily where funding for all of our operations come from.
Yep.
So they're
What about things
so
like toothbrushes and toothpaste and those kind of things? Are those things that you
Yes,
need? Or, yeah.
yes, those are things that we need, and those are things that we distribute as well, and sometimes a partnership with Soap for Hope. We're often able to get things like that as well to again
Because I know
communicate.
in Parksville, I don't know if it's the same now, but I know it used to be that somebody could go into the Salvation Army there with their household list of things, and they could say, I really need laundry soap, and they'd get a little bag of laundry soap, or my kids need toothbrushes, and that's what they'd get, instead of just getting a hamper.
Yeah, so again, we've been able to go back to the appointment-based model,
Oh, that's
and so
good.
with doing that, you can have all those discussions. And these days, I mean, there's so many different dietary needs that everybody has as well, right? You know, there's diabetics, there's the celiac, there's
Gluten-free.
lactose intolerant. Yeah, right?
Well, we had a diabetic at the food truck.
Yes, exactly.
And I was almost shocked, but I shouldn't be, because, of course, there's people who are diabetic, right?
There's
Like,
lots of them.
But you don't think of it, right?
And the reality is that a lot of them have those issues, but they are eating what they have available to them, and then
Yeah.
they suffer.
Yeah.
You see a lot of them in pain overnight that they've eaten something they shouldn't, but it's all that's available. So if we can somehow help them with that, and
So my other question is, I know I have had people say to me after I said I did the food truck, oh, well, you're just feeding the people that choose to be that way. And I said, I
No.
feel like that's not a correct answer. Are you getting a lot of families that just have lost jobs during COVID that just can't?
I think
No.
what we're seeing a lot of is the cost of living
Yeah, that's
is
what I'm trying to
increasing,
say.
and,
Yeah.
and it's pushing it's pushing people, and it's pushing people out of the market. And who's getting pushed out? It's every time someone moves into, you can't afford your $1,800 basement suite anymore, so now you're looking for a $1,200
Yeah.
apartment that used to be $600, and it's pushing people, and it's
Out.
it's creating more people that are housing insecure. And I think every month, like we're seeing new faces every month, and I think sometimes it seems like they're coming from out of town.
But they're not.
That idea that there's busloads
Yeah.
of people coming here, but I don't think it is. That person you're seeing on the street for the first time isn't necessarily from out of town.
They're just
It's that
not
they're
being
new,
able to afford.
and then they've been
Yeah.
pushed out of the
And-
market,
and-
and now they're.
Yeah, and absolutely, I've seen people that I recognize both on the food truck and sitting at the Bread of Life who were gainfully employed prior to COVID, and through all of this, I mean, they've lost their positions and now need to eat at the soup kitchen and the food truck. So the need really has grown in our community, and it affects everybody. We've seen families with young children who the only way they've been able to get the proper meals for their family has been through the soup kitchen and off the food truck. Particularly earlier on. So,
Well, you hear people say, I just paid my hydro bill, now I can starve with heat. So at least this is something that it's a bill they don't have if they're getting food.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these people, like, we can say, why don't they just go get a job? Well, if you're starving and you're just trying to survive,
Yeah.
you need to provide those basics before you start talking about the job. And
Yeah.
and we have access to those resources. We work closely with INEO, and a lot of people need job retraining, or they
Yeah.
need a gradual return to work, and it's working with those agencies. But it's getting the people ready for it. It's, do they have a clean pair of clothes? Do they have food in their stomach? Do
Yeah.
they have somewhere to sleep at night? And when they have those things, then you can start talking about returning to work. But to jump straight from having nothing to the job,
it's not going to happen.
and it's not as simple as getting a part-time job and then finding housing, because that's not going to do it.
Well, in the light
You
of
can't afford
COVID,
it.
are you still open to volunteers?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, and volunteers are so important, right? Because I mean, that's honestly the only way that we work with hundreds upon hundreds of people a day, right? And I mean, you can only do so much with the wonderful staff that we have, and we have some of the most amazing staff in the world. But it's only through people being able to volunteer that we are able to help out as many people as we do. And some of the blessings is some of our volunteers are people who have needed to receive our services and either don't need to receive them anymore or are still
that's wonderful.
transitioning. And so for a lot of them transitioning back into the workforce, it's that perfect step forward, right?
Yes,
And-
absolutely.
And then I can honestly, tell their prospective and future employees that they were volunteering with us and they did an absolutely wonderful job, and then it's great, because then I'm forever running into people who tell me, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years
Wow.
ago, right? I was on the street and the Salvation Army helped me, and I just want to, let you know that, the people you're helping today will be thanking somebody 5, 10, 20 years from now. So it's a real blessing.
I've
Making
never
me
been on
tear
the
up.
street, but I've used the Salvation Army. When I left my husband and I needed furniture, and I came with nothing, I came on a bus to a new province. They helped me, and I try and help now because I can.
Yeah.
Speaking of
But-
which, okay, I want to volunteer. Somebody out there wants to volunteer. What do they do? Where do they go?
So they can call the Salvation Army or stop by the Salvation Army or the Bread of Life, and we'll put you in contact with our volunteer coordinator, and we'll put you to work.
Okay. Well, I recall before COVID, I volunteered for packing those food boxes.
Oh,
and-
yeah.
Yeah, I did that. And so were you able to do that again last year in spite of COVID?
Yeah, so we did the hampers and everything else like that. Yeah.
Does
Things had to change. We had to do things differently. It was creating spaces where people were separated. Now you're 6 feet apart, and how many people can be in a certain room? And we can't do everything here, so now we need to use a different space. And got away from people coming into the food bank to select their own food to having to prepackage, where we're staff and volunteers prepackaging and we're handing out. And not only that, but because of COVID, we started doing home deliveries.
I see.
Where either because that people are in quarantine or isolation, I think that was the main intention of it. But then it's also opened up for people that have mobility issues. That like for someone to walk across town with a disability and then hand them this hamper and say, now walk.
It's not going to happen.
No.
So now we're able to deliver straight to home, which is.
Well, we're so
Okay.
blessed that the people like you are here, and your organization like these are here. So
And what does the CUAS do? Like, are they a counsel?
Yeah, I'm curious
do
about
they
that.
count? Like, what is it? Counseling?
So the
or-
primary service is the CUAS crisis line, which is a 24-hour service to provide in the moment crisis. Someone is feeling suicidal or just anything like mental health crisis, anything like that, is to create some or to provide some support in that moment, and then often it's assessing if there's a greater need needed. Is the person actually suicidal? Does the authorities need to be called? Or so our crisis line here actually services all of the First Nations in the whole province. So they get calls from Prince George,
really,
or remote communities that are on islands where maybe there isn't an RCMP. So it's creating a relationship with the bands there and who is their contact if someone there is in crisis. Call them and they can go and respond. So that's the core service. And then there's other things like the outreach They have their own hamper service where they hand out some food hampers on the weekends. There's outreach that's actually done on the West Coast in Tofino and Nicolet. It varies depending on the time of year, but 2 or 3 days a week where they're out on the West Coast trying to connect with people.
Funny. Somebody was just telling me that there's no resources in Tofino and Nicolet. But there is then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cluis is out there every Tuesday and Wednesday.
What do you mean resources?
There was no resources out there for anything.
There's also
there's
also a food bank in both Tofino and
okay.
Nicolet that
okay.
we've partnered with at times in the past and try to offer support for. So yeah, there's definitely there are some services there. A huge problem that we have.
Is there a Salvation Army and a captain or a lieutenant there in Tofino?
No.
No, they're actually in our sphere. So we try and support the food banks out there that aren't Salvation Army food banks, but we try and support them as best we can.
But they're part of the Food Banks BC network, so they get access to a lot of the
So
same
when
food.
I see people go into every time I go to Costco, you see people at the back door with food bank and different things on their vans getting food. Is that something you guys have as well, or no?
So we get food from Food Banks BC and Food Banks Canada coming out of Loaves and Fishes in Nanaimo, which is a real blessing.
Okay.
And of course, we were able to get a large refrigerator truck during COVID. So then we were able to get some more things from Nanaimo in that regard, and then bring them down here and distribute them to people in need in our community.
So, for example, yesterday we had a volunteer that took our truck down to Loaves and Fishes in Nanaimo and picked up a pallet of eggs.
Oh, okay.
So we bring them back, and then now we're able to distribute them through the food bank, use them at the Bread of Life.
It's a very
soup
profound
kitchen.
name. What is Loaves and Fishes? I know that's from the Bible. But
Yes, yeah.
It
So
is
they're
a
like a
religious
food bank or
organization,
something?
is it not?
I think it was originally, but I don't believe the Loaves and Fishes is anymore. Do you know more about
I'm
the
not- I'm
organization
actually
in
not
Nanaimo? They've sort of
100%
become
sure.
the hub area for Vancouver Island, so they're able to get really large quantities of donations, and they have a really large warehouse. And so then when they get quite a bit of stuff in, then they send out emails to the different food banks on the island and ask how much you want. And we usually take as much of it as we possibly can and send up our big trucks and pull it back
there
to
you go.
feed and take care of all the people in our community
And
here.
what about our local businesses? Like, I know we give you guys muffins,
Yes.
but like, do all the restaurants know that they can do that, or do they? I don't know. Like, I don't need to know if they do or not, but do they know? Do we? Is there a way to tell them if they don't know, or?
There was
Because I didn't know.
again.
until COVID.
I think COVID was another opportunity to reach out, because there's been so many times where restaurants have been closed. Numerous restaurants have said, sometimes unexpectedly, like, there's a new mandate in, we're closed as of Saturday. Can we donate everything we have on Sunday?
Well, that's what we did when when COVID first happened. But I never, if that hadn't happened, I never would have thought to donate our muffins. Like, I wouldn't have known. Right. That's what I'm saying. So like,
I mean, we
do
certainly
you let everybody know?
we
they
certainly
can do that?
partner with. We certainly are getting food from numerous, like every grocery store in town. A few different
that's
restaurants,
nice to
bakeries,
hear.
coffee shops.
Yeah.
Like, we are
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew they could do
Yeah.
this.
right. And I think that's important
Because
I
I
to
didn't
mention
know I could do it.
donations and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I'm curious. I might be stepping out of line or something, but you tell me or not, or we can edit it out. So cash donations, is that here? Is it that? Do they stay here in Port Alberni,
100%.
or is it shipped like the Vatican? You ship it all to the Vatican.
No, 100% of what's raised here in Port Alberni stays here in Port Alberni.
I
The
see.
need here in Port Alberni is quite significant, and so every penny raised here stays here to take care of the people in need right in our community.
Is there a way, like, for example, you're short? Is like there's a subsidy or some assistance coming from the main?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, that's nice. That's beautiful. That's good to know.
It really is good to know, because I mean there are times where the need far outweighs the resources you're able to get. And so the joys of being a national and international organization is when the need is the greatest, then we're able to pull on the resources from elsewhere to help out the people in real need. And the blessing
just
of,
like the food truck. Like it came from somewhere else.
Exactly, it came from somewhere else. So the blessing of being able to do that means that when when a disaster hits a community or when it's going through a particularly tough time, when smaller organizations may need to close, right? The Salvation Army is able to keep going and able to keep helping out those in need. So yeah, that's a real blessing to be able to pull in those resources from elsewhere.
Can we mention some of the great organizations that are helping you every night on the food truck, just so we can acknowledge them?
Sure. So Kelsa Aid, Rotary.
What is Kelsa Aid? Sorry.
Yeah, they're actually an international society within the East Indian community.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I know that they were just the Ucluelet band in Ucluelet had some water challenges recently, and they were going up there with water. They made a significant donation to the hospital ER expansion. Yeah, so they're
Okay, just
yep.
curious. Yeah.
People do get
I
confused
knew what it
because
was, but I didn't know.
people get
other
confused
people
because
knew.
there's Kelsa Aid,
Yeah.
Kuas, and Kuasa.
Yeah. Right.
So they could get mixed up.
I just knew
But
because
yeah.
of Bob, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so there was, let's
The
continue. with
Kelsa Aid, and then Rotary, and the AM Club, because there's 2 Rotary clubs in
Yeah,
town,
I
and
was
both
just-
have been a good support.
I was
but
just
the-
about to ask.
Oh yeah,
Both Rotary support.
both Rotary support absolutely, and it's the 7 a.m. club that goes out on the truck every week. So
Oh, okay.
and as well, Jericho Road Church on Saturdays takes the truck out, and Elam, which was doing some time before with their pastor and Bell, were going on the truck. They're starting up, and they're going to be going out every Monday again now. So yeah, it's a real blessing to work with all of those partners, and one group we haven't touched on yet with the overnights is the Grassroots Homelessness Coalition. That
Right.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention them, because the amount of work they've been doing has made it possible for us to keep.
Is that the group that Lisa started?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lisa George. So they had been doing pop-up warming centers where they were setting up down on 4th Avenue and putting up a tent and providing food. But when we started doing our overnights, we came together and realized that how do we make one service better instead of being divided. So they're now staffing one of
Oh,
our
that's
2 people
good.
7 nights a week.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, that's
And they just had a
wonderful.
big theft, did they not lose everything?
Yeah,
did, yeah.
their trailer was broken into on their property.
bad.
Yeah.
Which is it, the Grassroots group? I see.
Yeah, so all their outreach supplies, there was food and water and coats and blankets and all sorts of supplies. Unfortunately, it was emptied.
Oh, wow. When we went out on the food truck, we only did 2 stops, I think.
Right.
Right? I forgot the other one. That one was 4th Avenue. That one I can't forget. But what was the other one we stopped at?
Up by the athletic hall.
On Kendall.
Out
Oh,
Kendall.
on Kendall, yeah.
Yes.
So those are just one of how many? 2 of 10 stops that you make?
So every day we do at least 3 stops. We do those 2 and then the Bread of Life. And then on the weekends we still do QS, and I think we do Port Pub and by the Beaufort.
So it's hitting where we know the
Whether you know there's
highest,
people.
Yeah,
The Port Pub, okay.
and making it so that at least there's stops that are accessible for people that are sleeping. There are people
Yeah.
sleeping in the bush, and we
Yeah.
want to make sure that we can at least reach some of those people. So there's like the stop on Kendall and Roger. We know there's some people sleeping rough in that area, and they're able to come access food there, where it's quite a trek for them.
Isn't there like a group in somewhere at the back of Walmart or something?
Yes.
Are they still there, or?
Yeah, we've gone there a few times, and for whatever reason, we think there's a stop, and we've tried a few different ones,
Right.
and we try it for weeks, and we get one person, and so then we just like, okay, well, this is obviously not the best stop. We'll try
No.
somewhere else. And
So on average, how many people do you think you feed a day? On your
between all of, or just on the truck,
On the
yeah,
truck.
it's in the 120.
Wow.
It does fluctuate based on time of year, based on when income assistance and other monies are available. And numbers will often dip, and then they'll start to climb back up again.
And we've been doing this since 2 years now, or since the truck got
Well,
here.
yeah, since the truck got here.
Such a
Summer
beautiful-
of 2020,
Yeah.
or late spring.
Do you find it's not as busy in the summer? Or does that make a difference?
I don't
I
think
just
the
was thinking
summer
with the
makes a
weather.
difference. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, one of the big things is just the cycle for when people's checks come in, and then what happens in the community. Like when COVID first hit, even before we had the truck and we were doing the people coming to the door and the home deliveries, I mean, then we were feeding up to 720 people a day. Like the need in this community was just, it was through the roof, and I don't think anybody could have predicted that, right?
No.
So then as the needs in the community change, we try and meet those needs through the different service provisions we have, right? So.
Yeah.
And another thing we were doing this summer is, especially when it got up to 40 degrees, is we were going out every day during the day with freezies and water. And,
Oh yeah,
and
I
trying
remember
to
that heat
keep
wave.
people,
Yeah.
and
I regret
maybe-
selling my air conditioner.
Well, yeah, because you can get heat stroke. I mean, that's
I know.
Not,
Oh, yeah.
not pleasant.
So I think we have our base services, but then it's when there's a need identified, it's expanding that and trying our best to meet that need.
Yeah. Is there anybody, I don't know, maybe this is a silly question, but somebody came to the food trucks, for example, and they just needed somebody to talk to or to is there people for that? Like, is there somebody you can call, or is that where you go to the crisis center? Or?
Sure. Well, you've got the crisis center, and you've got people you can talk to, and again, one of my hats is as pastor. So I mean, I can sit down and as a chaplain chat with people in need through their crises. And again, we try and hook people up with our partner agencies. You know, Canadian Mental Health and the other organizations.
Friendship
in town.
Center, ACAUS, ADAPS, kind of identifying their need, and we don't specialize in everything, like by any means, but there are those out there, and it's making sure we can connect people to those services and get the people
Well,
that
a
specialize
thought just
in
crossed my mind because now that Michael mentioned he was a pastor, I used to be a pastor back in the Philippines.
Oh,
too.
really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I came out on television. We had a show called Turn On to Jesus.
Oh, neat.
Pastor Don Tecson, welcome to you to Turn On to Jesus. We're going to talk about the Blessed Virgin today.
That's
Is
great.
that on YouTube?
No, this is before the internet. It was in the 80s.
Oh.
You got to find some old issues and put them up on YouTube. I mean,
I've been trying to, but apparently we were using VHS tapes and those U-matic tapes. This was the analog age, so I don't think we have any record of it now. But that
Wow.
was a show that ran for 7 years. But I was just curious to engage.
Just a little show for 7 years. Number one on network television.
that's great.
Well, it got broadcast in other countries like Kuwait and Saudi Arabia
This
because
is
the
before
station we
blue
were.
hair.
That's why I was inspired to do this because I
Wow.
have 7-year experience in television production. And
Wow.
well, anyways, I'm just interested to get into a conversation about biblical issues like
Oh,
pre-rapture, post-tribulation.
oh wow.
rapture, stuff
You
like
really
that.
want to get into it all? Look at that.
No, I'm just curious. It's just
yeah.
a theological exercise.
Yeah. I always love that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Because I do know a little bit about the history of Salvation Army. If am I correct, it was William Booth.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
He wrote Amazing Grace. That's all. Was it him or somebody else?
He wrote
that.
Boundless Salvation.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so
Because he was
William
in
Booth,
prison.
he did work with people in prison. It was in London's East End, right? And that was one of the main things, was that people were without food and without shelter. And he said, well, how can you share with people the gospel if you're not even willing to share with them food and a place to stay?
Okay.
So then started having social justice involved with our outreach right from the very beginning. And one of the early things they did was in England in the 19th century, when it started, they had match factories, and so they'd have kids and child labor, and they would be making matches, but the material in the matches would make them have, I think it was called flossy jaw, and so your jaw would actually be radioactive and it would glow in the dark until it all just disintegrated,
off?
and you just died.
Wow.
And so
That's horrible.
Yeah. So William Booth and the Salvation Army, they actually took over a match factory and invented the current matches we've got now, the safety matches that don't do that to people, right? And got it all going and then gave it back.
Well, that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah. So always, and right from the beginning of the Salvation Army, they've always been, where people are suffering the most, where there's the most need in a community, right? That's where we officers, right? We're supposed to look, we're supposed to see where the most need is, and then work together with as many people as we can to try and help out everyone. And again, that's why so blessed to be in the Alberni Valley here, because at this time through COVID, where there was this real need in our community, I was so blessed to be able to work with so many great community partners, and we've been able to help so many people. and it warms my heart to be a
And we're
part of
glad
this.
to have you. I mean, you're a blessing to this community. I mean, thank you for doing what you do.
Oh, yeah, thank you guys, and thank you guys for coming on the truck, and I'm going to hold you to the offer to come back on
Oh, I
again.
loved it.
yeah,
It was
for
fun.
sure.
right?
It was fun. Yeah. I
Yeah,
liked
but
it.
let's do the 5 o'clock one. Oh,
Yes.
what time does the truck go?
yeah.
What time?
Yeah, it usually goes about 5 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
No, I think it was fun. I would love to do it again. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with doing it by going out on a Thursday at lunch. We added an extra lunch service that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So there's definitely no harm in that.
Oh, definitely. I had fun, and I was glad to do it. It gave me a good feeling. So much so that I feel so good today. I'll buy a lotto ticket. Let's see if it wins.
You're not supposed to buy a lotto ticket. Not good.
You're feeling good.
Actually, one of the blessings, and providentially with the day that you did it as well, we were having a problem staffing our kitchen that day, and so the fact that Steampunks was able to provide the meals that day, provided the meals for the lunch and the dinner that otherwise we don't know how we were going to be able to provide. So I mean, it was
Great.
just a real blessing that you two were able to help out on that day
It was
in
fun.
that way.
Yeah, everything fell into place.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. I definitely want to do it again. Yeah.
And
That's
it's
good.
I think it's so important for people to have the opportunity to get out and interact with some people that are in these situations and see the humanity in them and see that they're people like everybody else and that they're struggling and try to give them that
I think
little
a
bit
lot
of
of people
support.
forget that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost out of time, so I will give this opportunity to Colin and Michael to say a last message in relation to the wonderful Alberni Valley experience that they're having here in Port Alberni. So, Michael, I'll start with you.
Sure. I just want to thank everyone in the valley here. This really is a wonderful Alberni Valley experience. Having lived across this country and served in so many different communities, this is certainly one of the most generous communities that we've lived in. And it's been a real blessing to partner with so many people to be able to help out those in need. And you two are definitely a very big part of our community here. And thank you so much for having us on your show today.
We're glad to have you. Colin?
Yeah, I think the same. One, thank you, Michael, for the opportunity. I think that it is it's his trust in me that has given me the opportunity to try and do more in the community. And I think we try to push some boundaries and not just be happy with status quo. So thank you for that opportunity. And then, thank you to the everyone that stepped up, especially in the last 2 years, and always trying to do more. And it's not us that are just trying to meet the new growing need. It's everybody, and there's no way we're doing it alone.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So thank you to everyone, and thank you both for having us here.
It was a pleasure having you both. I would just like to ask Caroline, what gave you the idea to put Salvation Army in our show?
Well, we started giving to them when COVID happened. I didn't know what to do with all this food. We just bought the cafe, and I, of course, just put in a huge order. I didn't know what to do. I called them. They were great. So we donated, and then then the food truck came, and of course we see a lot of those street people because they come in the cafe. So I don't know, I was just intrigued by the whole thing. I didn't know how it worked, and I was curious. And then I had questions. People say things, and I wanted to know how it really works. I want everybody to know how it really works, right? I mean, it's great when I call and say, or message you and say, I got muffins. Somebody is there right away. Like, it's perfect. I don't know. I appreciate it. We feel good doing it, and I think most people do. Yeah.
Well, there you have it. The wonderful Alberni Valley experience continues, and we will have more of that in more days to come. We're so grateful that Michael and Colin have come to the show, and we are so blessed with all the help and support that they have received. This is The Wave coming at you. We'll catch you next time.